Welcome everyone to Tyrone's house. Clearly, I'm not Tyrone, and we are joined tonight by Lynnea Cornish, the most fabulous parent, former principal, Lynnea. You may recognize her from our Tyrone's houses in the past, but we have like a special show tonight where we feature her and all her wisdom related to her past as a principal and her current as an activist parent on PCAB, as well as active in Teachers Democracy Project spaces. So let's just like warm up a little bit. Okay, so it is chilly, it is fall outside. What's something you're gonna do this weekend to enjoy the change of weather?
I'm not sure. All week I had been thinking about what am I going to do this weekend? What am I going to do this weekend? I mean, other than the kids' things, but just try to get them outside as much as possible. My twins play soccer, so being able to just go out there Saturday mornings and talk to the other moms and just cackle out there with them, that's pretty. I look forward to it. But eating out, I'm not cooking any dinner this weekend. So other than that, just having a good time with them.
That's great.
Yeah. How about you?
So there's a lantern parade that happens every year in Patterson Park, and it's it's like a little arty, cool, funky little parade through Patterson Park. So you get your costumes on. So I got to get our costumes finished. I'm a witch and she's a cat. So we'll be parading around and playing outside a little bit.
Yeah, that'll be fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember going to the Lantern Festival down in Canton one year. We did that maybe like 2 or 3 years ago, and you drew on your lantern, you lit it, and then you put it in the water. That was pretty fun. So
that sounds lovely.
Yeah, I don't know if they've done it before or they've been doing it. I don't know, but that was pretty fun a couple of years ago.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
All right. So tonight we are going to talk about school climate and bullying. We know that this school year is like no other. Coming off of this year of virtual learning, kids have had such a varied experience at home. Very few kids have had a great time with this past year. So we know that kids are bringing a lot of challenging behaviors to school. And they've been through trauma. Many of them have been through trauma and loss, and it's hit people harder and easier depending on where you sit in your community, in your family, in your situation. But we're just curious. So for you, as a principal, as a former principal, what do principals do, administrators, teachers do to build a strong climate and culture up from the beginning? So when you start the school year, just give us like what you should do to build this thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think number one is, knowing your climate, knowing the students, knowing the families in your building. And I can kind of tell you, I think like, as an administrator, it's kind of like that first 3 years, like you're really focusing on the climate and culture of your building. So of course, not being a principal who set back but after a pandemic, never been in that situation. So I'll preface that. But, just as a principal, when you go into any school, if you looked at the data to see, okay, how many suspensions, how many, just the overall data, how many, maybe your homeless population, the climate, the racial climate, things like the free and reduced lunch, just kind of looking at the data that's available and then really kind of sitting down and making a school climate plan about how you plan to address, what the culture is. I know for me as a principal, first going in, a couple of things was like attendance was a big issue in my school. I knew that based on the data. And so in my mind, okay, I have to sit down, I have to create an attendance plan. Like, how do I get the kids back in school? What are the barriers that are preventing them from coming to school? And then of course you end up finding out, okay, well, they're going through this, or they're older kids who are maybe taking care of younger kids. So, just the gamut of why the data says what it says. And then just looking at your resources. And I think that's the biggest struggle for any principal is, what are the resources out there and how do I get them in my school? And I can tell you one resource that I went like every year, every time I saw like a posting for it, was like the truancy court program. Still never got into my building, but I was like anxious. I was like, I need the student. I would go to all the meetings, I would talk to the folks, apply every year, and never received it. But then you have, other partnerships that are looking to that they're saying, well, schools have to fund. So if you don't have the funds available, then, how do you get it in? But I would think if I was in the shoes of a principal this year and dealing with trauma, dealing with climate and culture of a building, I think the first thing I would do, I don't believe there isn't an opportunity for reset. So even if, as a principal or an admin, you're still seeing issues, and, it's now October, it's now November, just do a reset. I don't think that's something hard to do, or something that I think would be unsupportive. But I think that now that kids are in, they're kind of like the honeymoon is over, right? Here's an opportunity to say, to our teachers, to our students, to our parents, maybe we need to back up a little bit, and how is everyone doing? What are you seeing that, needs to be addressed? And then coming up with a plan. And, most of it really just is really professional development of it all. And who are you seeking out, what vendors or, what facilitators are out there to really help you as a school to come up with a plan about how you want to engage your kids. I don't know if most of our parents that are on the call, I don't know if your school has PBIS. That's another big initiative that a lot of schools have taken on. I do know one resource that I took on as principal, I'd probably say in my third or fourth year, is I did begin to see trauma, but that was like 2016, 2017, maybe even 2015. And I saw the trauma not just in my students, but I saw it in my families. I saw it in how my parents would talk to their kids. I saw it how parents would talk to my teachers. And I also saw how my teachers were talking to my kids and how my teachers were talking to my parents, right? So it wasn't just like a one-way street, it was two ways. And I think it was called Move This World. That's the name that came in my mind. But I found it through another colleague. So I was like, okay, well, how is this working in your school? And it basically was a program to support students as well as teachers on identifying your emotions, being able to label your emotions, and then being able to have a plan or a strategy on how to move forward with that emotion, not eliminating it, not saying, oh, you have to calm down, you have to be quiet, but finding strategies in order to support them. It was a lot of money. I had to find this money to actually employ it. But I made sure that when I did it with professional development from the company, from the vendor, which also had coaching. So it wasn't kind of like this one-time thing, like you do like a 2-hour PD and you let teachers go back. Like, I knew in order for it to work, it had to be something that would sustain. So I had to put out the extra money, right, to say I need the coaches. And I think the coaches came like maybe quarterly or something like that. I mean, it wasn't like every day, but I just made sure that that piece was on it so that when teachers had issues with the program, or if kids were struggling somewhere, that the coach was there. But it was little things like, if you're feeling a certain way, you drink a glass of water, and it had the movement with it to drink the glass of water. And kids actually began to adopt it. And you could see kids then talking to their own parents, about that language. But it wasn't, like I said, that was 2015, maybe 2016. But I just noticed that the climate in the building was just getting just very sensitive, I guess I would have to say. It was very sensitive. And at the end of the day, I wanted to make sure that my kids were okay, but I also got to make sure my staff was okay. If your staff isn't there to teach, then what are you going to do? But I thought it was a cool program. I don't know, since my tenure, did it last? I don't know the fruits of the labor that took to bring it in. But I would just say, I think to any teacher, any administrator, sometimes you got to shut the book sometimes, and you really got to have that community circle, I guess, if you want to call it, or that just community meeting to just do a reset. I did it as a teacher. When I saw my kids not getting along, all right, let's close the book. What's going on? Let's figure it out. What are the next steps? So I think it's a lot of problem solving. And if you have the data to support it, how do you sit down and how do you come up with a plan to get it better?
So reset. Yeah. And I think, you saying that it's really important for the adults in the building to be taken care of in order for them to be able to take care of the little people in the building. I know this is maybe a little detour, but I know we're hearing a lot about teachers quitting and leaving.
Yes.
And yeah, like what does reset look like right now? Like how do we support our teachers better? So I know you're not currently a principal, but
Yeah.
how do you do it?
Well, what I think as a parent, and I think, well, I am a parent, and I think that I understand a little bit about what's going on with my teachers. I think I'll just tell you my point as a parent. I reach out to my teachers. I have 3 kids, 3 different teachers, and I reach out to those teachers. Just ask them, how are they? I let them know I'm here. I let them know if they need something, let me know. I may not be able to do everything, but I've let them know, like, if I don't have the resource or if I don't have the answer or the solution, maybe I know someone who does. I even sent fidget toy boxes. I think that's what they're called. Like, it was like a class set. I sent them to the teachers this year. I don't know if they give them out or not, but I just thought, I think, something for the kids, something for the teacher as a support system. Whether or not they left them in the classrooms or gave them to the kids, I don't know. But, just offering that type of support, so when you see things, kind of say something, and just reach out and make sure they're okay. And I think that just that opportunity, I believe should open doors, a little bit, and let the teachers know, like, it's not as if, I don't want to be, not to say you'll be your friend, but be your partner in this, right? Your kid is there for 10 months. That's the teacher that's, with your kid every day. And you want to make sure that there's an open door so that if you do have a concern, how can I go to you respectfully? How can I go to you sincerely and help you navigate through whatever's going on with you or my child in the classroom? And then what can I do at home? And even though, like, I may call a parent, I may call a teacher, or I may call or email a teacher and say, hey, I know this is going on, because I did this week. I said, what is it that you need me to talk to my child about? Right? Like, I'm not going to sit here and say that my child is perfect and my child isn't doing anything. If there's something you're seeing in my child that either caused an incident or has caused a disruption, what is it that you want me to say to them in order for me to have your back? Like, I need to be saying the same language you're saying so that you're being supported, So I think sometimes just kind of humbling yourself a little bit, opening yourself up, because it's hard. It's hard being a parent and knowing that your kid spends 7-something hours with other people. And, I don't know about anybody else, but I want to make sure they're good. But I also want to make sure the person that's standing in front of them is good too.
I think that's such a beautiful gift to give them fidget spinners, and just to think about asking them. I feel like we always talk to each other when there's a concern or
Right.
a question. So I think leading with, are you okay? How
Mhm.
are you? Just checking in is so valuable.
Mhm.
Um, this is personal, but I have a little situation where like my teacher is always like, we got, or my school really is like, we got this. Like they don't ask for help. And so I'm always like, but I know you need it.
Right.
So
Right.
I think there's like a professional sometimes veneer of like, we've got this, we've got your children, you trust
Mhm.
us with your children. Not every school projects
Right.
this,
That's
but
true.
my daughter's school does. Like, I'm curious, like when you don't get a response to what do you need, like, is there anything that you would recommend?
I'm gonna be honest. I think I would probably go above the teacher's head. Like I would, I mean, I would, I mean, like you said, I think that we all need help. Like, I mean, I don't know about anybody else, but I think we all
Yeah,
need help. So I wouldn't be able to sit here and say like, like it's okay. I am here to work with you. I am not here to work against you. So, what can I help with? And I'm not sure. I have friends and I have families who live in different parts of the country, and I see more of the more connected, like the more like school home type of locations, like when everything is together. And I guess even the way I was even raised, like my elementary school was right down the street from my church, so the people who I went to church with were staff, right? um but I think we've gotten so disconnected from the community school type feeling that we don't know each other, right? We don't know the music teacher, or we don't know the principal, or hey, like we don't live in the same neighborhood, and that type of thing. So I think that does play a little bit of role in it, like the idea of, or maybe even the idea that schools don't believe parents want to be involved. Like maybe that's even that kind of message. Like they gotten burned so many times with parents that they don't, they're just like, oh, we'll just do it ourselves, right? Like the parents aren't going to help, the parents aren't going to be supportive, so we're not going to give them the opportunity to help us. That could also be an issue.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. So thank you all for joining us. Those of you that are watching and chiming in the chat on Facebook. Yaja says, you are very caring. Why did you step away from being a principal? I know, we all want to know. Welcome, Shatira, Joanne, Yaja, Michael Cheney. Did I miss anybody? Probably. Welcome everybody that I might have missed. Thanks for joining us. Do you want to share why you stepped away, or we can
Well,
move on?
I'm gonna be. Hey, I tell people I'm a former principal, not a perfect principal. I'm not gonna sit here and say that my first years, my first couple of years, I didn't cry every day. Like I felt like I did something wrong every day because everybody was ready to jump down, jump down my throat. But I just felt like the best interest of kids, and unfortunately, I stepped away because of my own children. My oldest, she had a real difficulty, starting school. And it was a lot of pressure because at the time I was still principal. So trying to give her what she needed, trying to give her the parent that I wanted to be to her, took a lot away from what I could do or couldn't do with my school. And I felt perplexed. Like I can't give the 48 hours I used to because now she needs more of my assistance. And then I had twins. So mom life took precedent, and so now I'm just, trying to just help those that, don't have the experience. But I just knew that I had to take care of home first.
Got you.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about what schools are doing around school climate right now. And I know you're not in the principal role right this second, but
Mhm.
we know that there's a new climate and culture plan that schools were required to
Yeah.
create over the summer. And there's always been some version of this, I think.
Mhm.
But we know that there's a new version. And do you know, parents were kind of supposed to be involved, I think, in creating these, but my guess is that it was a little maybe on the rush side. I don't know. Can you talk a little bit about these plans and how parents might lean into
Right.
them?
So I have been interested in it. So I kind of think sometimes, city schools, their communication, I think, sometimes it gets confusing. So I received the student learning plan. I don't know if anyone else has received it. It's like a questionnaire, but I received it in homework. And it wasn't like there were directions, or there wasn't really like it was an overview of why we were doing what we were doing. It was just this, you could either do it online. I know one teacher sent it to me online, another teacher sent a paper. And there were questions. I can't really remember some of the questions, but it was like, like, what do you like to do outside? Like, how is your family? Like things like that. So it hasn't been until recently that when I looked at, I want to say this Wednesday's Parent Connect, or whatever the Connect is email that they sent on Wednesdays, that they discuss the student learning plans and how the student learning plans are supposed to work in conjunction with, the school, the teacher, the student, and of course the parent. But like I said, I mean, I'm filling it out because it's homework, right? I'm just doing it because the teacher tells me to do it. But I didn't know, or I didn't understand what was the purpose. Maybe just the getting to know me type thing. The question I have, as I was reading the article, part of the article, the question that I had was, okay, I know as a parent I filled it out, but now what? And that's the part that I could not read in the blurb that they had what the next steps were. So I am, I'm curious, what is it? I could tell you as a parent, I have received all the surveys. I received the surveys from the district. I received the surveys from the schools. And I think that depending on what I think the school's intention of it is once all this data comes back, what I guess number one question is, are you going to look at the data? Are you going to look at the data to make a plan? I don't know. Are you going to look at the data to see what the data says, and then attempt to provide the support based on what the parents are saying? Or at the end of the day, this climate and the school climate plan, has that already been developed? And is it just, we're asking parents to fill this out just because we're just asking them to fill it out? And I think that I'm sure we've had this conversation on TDP before, like, what are y'all doing with the data? You sent out all these surveys and, so I'm not sure what it is supposed to be used for. Hi, Marlon. I'm not sure what it's supposed to be used for. I think it's just, I'm gonna be honest, just like everything else that the city, often does. But I would like to know what it is going to be used for. And then I can then be able to have a discussion with the school administrators. I have a discussion with, the teacher, if it's actually going to be used, and what should I see you come from it, I guess. But I haven't, other than what the teacher sent out, I haven't heard anything additional about what that plan and what the student learning plan is supposed to be used for.
Got you.
Yeah. I don't know. Have you?
Yeah, well, I mean, I listened to all the board meetings, and so I know that they're really, there's a lot of ambition around this idea. And I think it's a good one, like to really think about what are the unique needs of each child. There's actually also a school-wide climate plan that was created that schools were supposed to create in the summer, which is a little bit different. But I do think that the individualized learning plans, yeah, I think we'll see how they might change teaching and learning. I'm not yet so sure how that's going to look, but I'm watching just like you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
welcome, Marlon.
Hi.
We're going to launch a little bit into talking about like what happens if your child is involved in an incident of fighting or bullying. What should you expect from a school? What's supposed to happen?
Um, well, I think I mean, I think there are a number of ways that a school should be informed or would be informed or how they find out. Um, I guess it also depends on the situation on the child. I think, well, let me rephrase that. I think once the school finds out, right, then I think that there has to be an investigation. I think once the school is notified that there is an incident, I think reaching out to the student, getting the student together, finding out what's going on personally with the student, and then at least reaching out to the parents and letting the parents know like this was reported. I think that if the parent is the one who informed the school, I think it's trying to be as appropriate as you possibly can. So I say this to say that, a lot of times when you kind of hear bullying or you hear kind of the fighting incidents, as parents, I think that we're very sensitive because of course, there are children and you want to know like right at that moment what happens, or you want to know they come home or they come to the car and it's a fight, or they tell you the incident. And I think when you attempt to approach the principal at that particular moment and the principal does not know, then it does cause a little disconnect as far as how can I communicate to you as a parent that I am focused on this situation, but I'm just being told of the situation. I would often tell my parents that give us some grace, right? Because if you got a parent who wants to come up right at dismissal, or you want a parent who wants to come up right at arrival, depending on how many kids you got coming in the building, if you got 300 something kids coming in the building, I can't necessarily give you that undivided attention at that moment, right? So I think by letting a parent know I am going to address it, let me, now that I'm aware of it, I need to get your number. I need to figure out where you'll be so that when I can finish at least getting some idea of it, I can let you know, okay, now I know what's going on. Now give me the opportunity to investigate it. I think a lot of times, you want to give that, I guess, like the best customer service as possible. Like you don't want to just kind of shoo off a parent just because they're there at that moment. You want to be able to give them a valid response because they are upset, if something has happened to cause them some distress. So I think it's best to definitely be upfront and let them know how or what your next steps will be. But I think, the idea is, doing as much investigation and as much inquiry to the students who did it, as well as the teachers and whatever adults are around, and probing questions. It can't just be, well, what happened? A kid will say, well, I was playing. How were you playing? What were you doing when you say you're playing? Show me how you were playing. Show me how you touched her. And I'll say practice on me. Like show me where you hit her or show me where you put your hands on her so that you have, I think, as much understanding of what took place in your mind to then do what you did to this person. So I think it's not just asking the question of what happened. I think you really have to get kind of into the nooks and crannies of what actually took place. If it's something that has been repetitive, where did it happen? Who did it happen with? So I think when those types of situations, especially when it's bullying, that's the incident or the communication you get from the parent, because you want to close the loop and you want to close it fast because you don't want it to continue. I think you have to be very intentional about the questions that you ask, the parties involved, and staying consistent with your communication with the parent. If I'm gonna be honest, if I have a principal's meeting that day, or if I have a principal's meeting tomorrow, I need to be very clear to you that I won't be in the building tomorrow. Like I have professional expectations, right? So this is what I'm going to do tonight. This is what I'll do tomorrow morning when I get in. Like, you just need to be very clear on how you're going to try to resolve this matter. I think a lot of concerns end up happening because I don't believe we ask the right questions. And I think we don't provide, again, that type of customer service that a parent needs to at least feel as if you understand my pain. You understand what I'm going through right now. Yes, I'm frustrated. Yes, I'm upset. Something happened to my child. And you want to know as a parent that you feel that the administration is taking your situation seriously.
All right, let's kick it over to Marlon. So Marlon, we're talking about school climate and culture issues, and we know that the school year has launched with a number of challenges. Kids are bringing lots of behavior challenges, and teachers are feeling it. We know teachers are, we see from Yaja in the chat. William Paca had a teacher who resigned today. Another is going to retire early mid-year. Yet another teacher is talking about quitting. Apparently the principal's not doing something right. So we talked about how, as parents, we could appreciate our children's teachers. And then we're talking a little bit about, like, okay, what do you do when an incident does happen as a parent, as a principal? Like, what should we be able to expect? How should we communicate? I don't know, Marlon, weigh in. What do you have for us? What are you thinking? You are muted, love. I muted you.
Oh, sorry.
Okay,
so in terms of bullying, I believe that the school should just make it disappear, right? However you're going to handle it, please handle it. I spoke probably 2 weeks ago about Anaya having a bullying situation early in the school year. And so I emailed her theater teacher, because that was the class that it was taking place in. And she was on it right away and said that she would have a conversation with Anaya. She had the conversation with Anaya, and I'm not sure if she had a conversation with that other young woman, or if she changed the seating dynamics, or if she had a class talk. But whatever it is, it disappeared. Okay. And so, that's my philosophy, that the school should be able to make it go away. I know for myself as a teacher, bullying was really big for me. Like, that can't happen in my room. It can't happen in my space. And I can see it. I can see it, I can feel it, and I'm going to pinpoint it right away as soon as it happens. Let's talk about this. Like, why do you think it's okay for you to treat people like that? Now, I'm clear that, not everyone has the same type of approach, right? And not everyone has the same kind of time, right? You have some teachers who are really, really focused on the curriculum and the time span that they have to fulfill what they need to. And then you have other educators who are like, my kids can't learn if they're uncomfortable. That's me, and so we need to have a space where everyone feels as if they can be themselves. That's important to me. In terms of like the school climate and what's occurring now, I don't want to sound like, you know how you do something, your grandmother, like, I told you not to. I was asking this question, like, what is going to happen when these babies who have been in settings that are not conducive to health, no regiment, no answers about what's happening in the world, being re-traumatized after being in that space for 18 months, now you're sending them back out in a structure with educators who aren't sure about the setting that they're in and how safe it is, right? Parents who aren't sure about how safe their children are, and children aren't sure about how safe they are. And so we're literally just seeing a cesspool of all these issues, and everybody has the textbooks open as if we're not going to talk about it. This is a lot. And so kids are going to show you, because kids always show you who they are. They are representing the ills of our society, right? That's what they're doing, because they don't have to bring their representative to the table. They're showing up straight up, like, this is what I'm dealing with.
Yeah.
And so that's what we have here. We have children blatantly saying, I need a space that I can be myself. I need a space where I can feel safe. I need a space where I can talk about these things that are not in the textbook.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and how do we do that? Yeah, how do we do that when, you know, so much of there's so much pressure right now to also not lose more learning time.
Time.
You know, I know that we have an emphasis on social and emotional learning, that there are efforts to address these concerns, but we just might need a little more than the time that we've allotted for it. So I'm curious, like, how do we balance those different expectations of, like, we cannot lose learning time, we have to address these learning gaps, and yet, like, it's really hard to keep going on that if your class is upended by struggles.
I think that, you know, it's kind of often that saying, what is it? Basically, like, you know, I'll get corrected after I did what I did, right? Like, I still do what I'm gonna do, and then when I get reprimanded, I'm like, oh, okay, I didn't know I could do that. But I think the idea is that you have to find the time, you know. And again, I think, like, just like what Marlon said, like, getting back to the point of, if I see it, I need to address it. If I see it, I need to say something. If I see something wrong, I need to say something. And we need to get our kids into that frame of mind. When I see you doing something, or I see you saying something to me, I need to be able to tell someone, or even tell that individual. I know for one of my twins, like, he's a crier, right? You know, he's the baby boy. But I asked the teacher, particularly, I said, has he been crying at school? And she says, no, like, he hasn't been crying for the last 3 weeks. And I was like, really? Like, how did you get that to work? Tell me what your secret. And she said that she has been working on them as first graders on, when someone does something to you, or when someone says something to you, I guess in some way or some fashion, she has created the opportunity for them to say to someone, or to her, or to the class, I don't like how you touched me, or I don't like how you talked to me. And having some type of powwow or something to try to talk out the behaviors and come up with a strategy on how to move forward. You know, so I just think it goes back. I don't think that it has to be you know, hey, you had that 45 minutes for social and emotional learning. Not saying that. But if you feel like you got to take that 15 minutes, or depending on the day you're having, you got to take that 30 minutes to have that powwow, then I think you should be able to do that. And I think, as an administrator, if I walk in and I didn't see you teaching English language arts, but I see you engage with the kids because there's drama brooding, I would appreciate that teacher, because I think that tells me that teacher is there for some problem solving. That teacher's not just there to just beat, you know, the clock and try to make sure everything's right on a test. You know, I think there has to be a balance of, you know, teaching and learning, but social, emotional, whatever you want to call it, friendships, being kind to each other, that's a part of learning too. And I just think that we kind of have to get out of that mindset of, well, not mindset, but you have to allow teachers to be teachers a little bit, like, not facilitators. You know, if you brought this teacher on into your school building and you felt a good connection with this teacher, and you felt like, okay, this person seems to be a fair person, you know, just through the conversation, like, you felt a need to hire that teacher, and because you felt maybe like that teacher was a good fit. So why not allow them the opportunity to fix a problem in their classroom? Like, why not allow, that's their classroom. Why not allow them to have that opportunity to discuss with their kids how you want them to behave, how you want them to become lifelong learners? That would be me.
Making us all feel jealous that you're not a principal. Okay. So, all right. So let's say you do not feel like what you're describing is situations, like, both of you as educators and leaders, clearly know how to create spaces that are kind and safe and that parents would want to have their kids in. What happens when a parent doesn't feel like the school or the teacher or the principal has addressed a concern adequately? What can parents do?
Mm. Mm. Um,
Want to go back? Want to come back?
it depends. I would
Oh.
say I would definitely say it depends on sometimes the school district, right? And what parents are used to, because some parents are used to not getting their needs met. So they just shove it under the rug. And then you have parents from certain school districts who are really entitled and they know how they should be treated.
Mhm.
And so they know that if one level of hierarchy isn't answering their question, then they have to go to the next level. And that when they send an email, they need to CC whoever on a copy of the email because things aren't being taken care of in the way they need to be taken care of.
Mhm.
So I definitely believe that if parents feel as if the schools, their needs aren't being met or the children's needs aren't being met, then definitely start a paper trail, right? With reaching out to the people that should help, should be able to assist. And if you're not getting a response or any type of feedback in a certain time, then you do have to go to the next level.
Mhm.
Because this is a whole team of people who are educating our children. And so it needs to be cohesive. And sometimes teachers are inundated, between grading, testing, their own lives and COVID tests and whatever else, maybe they're not able to get right back, but someone else is. So just climb the hierarchy ladder.
Yep. Yeah, I definitely would agree with what Marlon said. I think also, I think another strategy could be is that, I think being present and being present in a way that, like showing your face, but at the same time, like also knowing who is in the building, like who are the folks that play a role in this? Is it just depending on the organizational structure of the school, is there a principal? Is there an assistant principal? Is there an ed associate? What relationships have you drawn, depending on, your situation? What relationships have you drawn within other folks in the building? Let's say if like your kid's been there for 3 years, but this is a new teacher, right? How is your relationship with the second grade teacher, or how is your relationship with the first grade teacher? So I think that it's kind of like you got to kind of play around in circles to kind of figure out like who can you get into to really voice the concerns that you have. But I think at a school level, if you haven't received that type of support that you're looking for, there, of course, in our system, you have the executive directors, you have the ombudsman's office, we have all those things set up here, with Baltimore City public schools. But there's also these opportunities where you also want to look out, with your neighbors, just have a discussion. Even if you are present at the moment, can you talk to some of the other parents, depending on what the concern is? Is there another parent seeing the same thing? How are you not friends, but are you aware of the other parents in your child's class? So hey, did you see that assignment last night? Am I clear on this? Like just reaching out to them if you have that type of relationship set up. So I definitely think, building the relationships. And I think once you've gotten to the level where you can have a response with the principal, again, I think that you also had to cultivate that relationship. You also don't want that relationship to be like every time you talk to the principal, it's always negative. Start a conversation. How are you? Like, it's just ways that I think that we can facilitate more awareness of who we are as parents, and then aware of the fact that now the principal knows this is my child, this is me. We had this moment, right? But we hope not to have that moment again. but we're going to cultivate a relationship so that prayerfully that this doesn't happen again. And you know the type of response I'm looking for as a parent. So maybe it won't get to that point the next time.
I love that. So you're really talking about, relationship building and culture building and building those channels of communication so that there's understanding.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's, in terms of like, of course, my mind goes to, there's a bullying reporting form and
right.
you can pull it out, like that's really
Right.
not the long-term fix. That's like, that's something that you do when you don't know what else to do.
Right.
Because it triggers that the district investigate, but it still goes through all those channels. Like it still, goes through the hierarchy, as Marlon said. Just means that the school will have to deal with it, and they'll kind of get in trouble along the way. And that sometimes is useful as like a, hey, like you're really not listening to me kind of move. But ultimately it seems much more effective to go the relationship building route. To try to build that connection.
I also think, Rebecca, in terms of culture building, I think sometimes schools and administrators, they just forget about the simple fact that we're all human beings, right? And so I remember after a certain election, when a certain president won, my principal sent out an email and said that we weren't supposed to talk about the results of the elections with the students. Now, being a history teacher and having had us looking at the elections, discussing it right up until, it made absolutely no sense to me to not discuss this with my students. And so this school was in DC and every classroom had a camera. And I was like, well, I guess I'm gonna break the rules on camera today, because there's no way that I'm not going to discuss this with my students. It didn't even click. When I read it, I was like, oh, okay, all right. And talked about it in every class with my students, because I felt like this goes against like teaching ethics. It's being a human being and acknowledging that they were a part of this whole process and that they have feelings too. Right. So now we have students in these classrooms who have lost grandparents, have lost uncles. Are we talking about loss? Is there anything that's creating that essence and that space to acknowledge where they are? And I think the explosions, the behavioral explosions that are occurring, is because they don't feel that their feelings are being acknowledged. So I don't know what needs to happen, but the state of education was already in an uproar before COVID.
Very true.
Yeah. I think it goes back to, I think what you just said, Marlon, like it's, you have to be able to talk about what's going on and think about, if you start the conversation with your kids, how that when they come home, they're starting the communication within their homes. Like it's an extension, or a flip-flop of what's going on. Like, and we all have differences. We all have different opinions, and we should be able to communicate, okay, this is what we talked about in class. Like, we don't do current events anymore. I remember, I don't know if anybody remembers like the Time magazines that you needed to pay a subscription for. But I remember the last time I was actually in a classroom, it was around the college scamming thing. And I had a whole conversation with a sixth grade class just about that whole piece, and it's kind of like they didn't know what this was about, and we were able to have these discussions, like about privilege and, entitlement, and I knew that it went home because, I had a parent who said, oh, da, 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 da. And I'm like, okay, good. So we're having these conversations, with our kids, and it's nothing wrong with it. Like, this is what's happening in the news. These are things that are going to make your kid, and your students better people, because they're aware of the things that are happening in society. And I think that at the end of the day, I think when you look at most mission statements, and I'm sure the mission statement of city schools, it's what? To become a global citizen or to become a better citizen. Well, this is the opportunity to become a better citizen because I'm learning about this election. I'm learning about what happens here so that I can become an informed citizen when I get to the level of being to vote and to live the life that I want to live. It starts here.
Absolutely. And, I feel like this takes us into this whole debate about critical race theory and, whether we can talk to our children about the truth and history or not. And how different states are legislating that we're not supposed to tell the truth about history. Or the present day, thinking about just how divisive the media is. But that's a whole other show. One of my favorite topics. We'll have to dig into that another time. So we have to sign off for tonight because Tyrone is not here and I'm on a schedule. But thank you guys for having me. I know I'm not Tyrone. I'm not even close to Tyrone.
You're Rebecca.
But thank you all for joining us. Those of you that joined in the chat, and we had Michael Cheney and Yaj over there saying that you all are dropping nuggets and appreciating all of what you shared. So always a good conversation, and just appreciate you both.
All right, thank you. We appreciate you too.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Take care.
Too.